appreciate everyone's presence and your interest in what we're doing. By teleconference, we have Trustee Crystal Brown that will be participating with us. Welcome, Crystal, rather. We'll get started now with item number 1, which is our schedule for 2017. How does the board feel about this?
It's still on Wednesday at second week.
Yes, and we did go a week later, I think, because of some, we tried to do it the second week of the month. On 2 months, at least 1 to 2 months, we ran into conflicts with major conferences that would involve the chancellor and staff. So I know we deviated, and there's a month or two that it's a week later. But of course, in extenuating circumstances, as we got into the year, if we needed to make an adjustment with the proper advance notice, we could do that. But does this meet with approval, just the initial look at this, meet with approval? Okay, very good. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to item 2 and 3, which are both with Calhoun Community College, a renovation project for Student Testing Success Center, and a construction project for Automotive Technology Building. Welcome, Dr. Claude.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board, and I will do my very best to be brief if I can. I want to talk to you about 2 things that we're doing on our Huntsville campus. First thing is that we built a new building there. It's freed up a lot of extra space in our old building. We're able to do some things that we weren't really able to do before. And there are a couple things that we need to take a look at. Number 1 is our testing center. Now, I know in the world of higher education, testing is not a moneymaker. Matter of fact, it's kind of a pure student service. You aren't going to make any big bucks doing testing. But the fact is that we've got more students there. We're doing more testing. We're doing some testing work keys and things like that for our Workforce Solutions office, and we're just cram-packed for space. Need to add some space to our current testing location there. Other thing is that we want to talk about is our Student Success Center. We have started a Student Success Center in our Decatur campus, and we want to expand it to Huntsville. Now, I'll tell you, this is a key component of our retention strategy. When I got to Calhoun almost 2 years ago now, we had a lab to help out with math. We had a lab to help out with writing. But if you were a business major and you were having trouble with accounting, or you were having trouble maybe with Excel formulas, guess what? You were out of luck at Calhoun. There was nobody that was going to be able to tutor you or help you. And from day one of the first things I wanted to do was to have a comprehensive Student Success Center at each campus. So no matter what the discipline, that a student who was in trouble academically or felt like they were getting in trouble, that they could go there and they could get free tutorial assistance, to help them with their classes. And that Success Center is really kind of designed to be the safety net underneath that high wire that student's walking on as they're trying to do their academics, juggle jobs and kids and everything else. And so we finished one in Decatur. We just hired a director, and now we work on here in Huntsville to do that. And those are kind of some big footprints. I've got this kind of takes a little bit better, goes into what I've just described to you. But that's going to be 6,900 square feet. And that's kind of a closer look at how we want to expand that testing center. We've got the space to do it now in the older building, so it's a good time to get it done. Again, we want to help struggling students, and we use a computer program called Starfish, which allows faculty to target and notify students and ideas that their advisor and the Success Center will be identified, so we can then go do some personal outreach to that student and say, hey, you know, if you don't come in and self-identify that you need some help, we can do outreach to them and call them and say, look, why don't you come on in and get a little help with that accounting or that search tech or, you know, this anatomy and physiology course. We got some people who can sit down and help you with that and maybe help you get through it and do a good job. The other thing is it does need to be a welcoming place, and we want to do that and have it adjustable for peak times of the year. And that's kind of what we're kind of looking at. That open area will be a lot of be really areas to do some tutoring. We'll also have a couple of classrooms that we could use for dev ed classes, maybe use them for our summer fast track programs and other types of programs designed to help those struggling students or those entering students if need be. Goal, we're going to do both of these simultaneously. We'd like to be completed by January of 18. Your approval, and that's the cost estimate on the testing center, and the estimate on the student success center as well. If you combine those both kind of one project, there's our total project cost with all of the fees and everything included. So that's the first project that I want to present to you today. Second project comes up. There it is, great. I was approached about, I guess 8 or 9 months ago from some of the big automotive dealers in the Huntsville area, and they just said, look, we are desperate for automotive techs. And I went and did some research, and automotives is a program that I am very well familiar with from my time in Kentucky, where I took a program that was on death's door, and in about 3 years we turned it into a national award-winning program. And so I kind of know what has to go into it. It's not a cheap venture, but if you're going to do it, you need to do it right. And we've kind of taken a look at it. I went out and assessed it in our regional service area. We saw that there was a strong demand for these automotive techs. There's a strong national demand. I think it's almost to the point of being like a nursing program that if you have multiple colleges that have programs and they are able to fill their classes, they're still all going to get jobs out there. Because the great thing about an automotive tech, it's almost like the gen ed of technical disciplines, because they get a little critical thinking and diagnostics, they get a little electronics, they get some hydraulic experience. They get really a broad area. They get some mechanical experience as well. So you can serve the whole spectrum of the automotive field, be it assembly, be it parts, be it the actual wrench turning, but also there are places for these graduates in industry as well, especially if they're looking for critical thinkers and mechanics and things along that area. So we assessed it, came back really strong, so we kind of come back, got a proposal to go up to 8 in the first quarter of next year, and we don't have any space on campus to be able to do it, so we need to build an auto tech lab. And what we'd like to do is put the lab down here behind our old fine arts building. It's a good location on the campus for it. We'd start with kind of a phase 1 that we look at, which would have service bays, classrooms, engine transmission storage, another area that we'd like to go into. I don't know that it's being done a lot in Alabama. Some of our sister colleges may be doing it. It's not done really at all in our region, and that is get into the alternative fuels. Hybrids are now commonplace in dealerships, but if you look at the Port of Huntsville, they use a lot of propane, compressed natural gas as well, and so we would like to try and kind of get involved in that a little bit, training students to be able to work on those types of cars, because you're going to start to see, eventually the price of oil is not going to stay cheap forever, and you're going to eventually see more and more alternative fuel vehicles, especially with the national CAFE standards that are in place by the federal government. This is the kind of the exterior of the building, how I expect it to look. And here's our project schedule. I'd like for it to be done tomorrow, but unfortunately, we can't do that. It's really on a project schedule about a year and a half. Maybe it would be ready by September, the fall term of 18. Our plan is to start the program this fall of 17, and we've already been talking with some high schools about using their NATAP accredited labs to run a night program through that first year. And we actually have a great interest among many of our dual credit students. We believe that we can mostly fill that night program right off the bat with dual credit students and maybe some adults. This is our project budget for a total of about $7 million. We've gotten $1.5 million from the state to do that. We've also applied for some grants for another $1.5 million and haven't heard back on those. We're optimistic about that, and so we're also going to try and do some more funding from the private sector as well, plus maybe a couple other grants we're talking about with COG. So those are all the tools, equipment, and subject to your questions. This concludes my presentation. I'll try to be as fast as I can.
What's the level of accuracy of those estimates? Is it plus minus 10, or did they, architect tell you?
Oh, we believe those estimates are pretty dead on.
Check contingency in both.
Yeah, we reviewed both of these and picked up something on last year, but on page 13, you're referencing the 09 International Building Code, and not the NFPA.
That is going to be a question I might get one of our architects to answer that question, because it's not one that I would know.
One would take precedence.
The building don't take precedence.
And on the IT equipment, I would like for you to coordinate the purchase of all that through the central office to make sure we're not going off in a direction. We may not be, we headed down the road.
Any other questions, comments for Dr. Clogger?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good these days.
Item 4, construction renovation projects and issue bonds by Bevel State.
Good afternoon, Board. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and share our proposal. Also like to thank the Facility Subcommittee that helped us refine this prior to getting here today. And I'm sure they'll appreciate some of the changes that we've made. So what we're trying to present to you today is our one-stop project. This is phase 1 of a 2-phase project. Phase 1 would impact our Jasper and Summit campuses. And to give you some context on Bevel State, if you're not aware, we cover 4,600 square miles of surface area. 4 of our campuses, we have 4 campuses in an instructional side. Those 4 campuses used to be standalone institutions. And so we were doing mergers long before there was talk about merger. But in any event, these are 2 of our primary campuses, one being a career technical campus, which is in Summerton, and the other, which is primarily a training school. As part of our strategic plan, which we enacted once I arrived at the college, which was about 11 months ago, we wanted to commit to developing one-stop centers. And phase 1 would include the creation of those centers in both Jasper and the Summerton campuses. If you're not familiar with those, and many of you are, basically it is a co-location of all student services. So when the student comes on campus, they'll have one central place to go for advising, for admissions, for things Dr. Clogger mentioned, which is visual support. Everything would happen in one location. We found this to be very effective. There's a lot of literature out there to support this, and we actually polled all of the other colleges in the system. We had 11 that returned back information. 9 of them have been running one-stop centers for quite some time. All of them with a lot of positive comments about the effects it has, primarily, of course, on retention of students, which is very critical. You know, we do a pretty good job in most colleges of bringing students in, but we typically don't retain them. When I first arrived at Bevel, our retention rate was around 50%. We've improved that already, but think about that. 50% of the students that are there in the fall will not be there in the spring. So any effort to improve that retention number is worthwhile. Student services are very physically and departmentally fragmented at Bevel State, and particularly on these two campuses. Later on, I'm going to ask Brent Jones from our architectural firm at PH&J to share the specifics of what we're doing. But you'll see on one campus there was never a front door, literally. So students don't know which door to enter in. All were side doors. And Gene's over there shaking his head. There's no way of knowing where to go for anything. The other campus, which is in Jasper, it looks like a traditional college campus, a lot of very older style buildings, and so it's very disfragmented. People don't know where to go to get services. So often in the administrative wing where I'm at, I'll get students who will come up and they're just looking for, where's financial aid, where's the bookstore? They can't find it because of the layout of the campus and the way it was originally designed. The fragmentation forces students to visit multiple buildings and offices in order to get answers to questions and find solutions to problems, and we think that is part of the challenge with retention. Our students today are much different than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I'll give you an example. We had a student on a full scholarship ride, quit showing up to class. We inquired why. The student says he didn't have the money to buy his books, so he dropped out of school. Those are routine types of scenarios that we hear in retention problems. Literally, we have to have all of those wraparound services to meet their needs. The Jasper campus will require the construction of a new building. So part of this project is a new building. There's an existing building that is there. That's the focal point of this campus, but it is unoccupiable. What I mean by that, literally, it is boarded up and just sitting there. At any time, we could have significant problems to that building. No one can occupy the building. It's the focal point as you drive by, which Ren will show in a little while, of that campus. The other campus, which is in Summerton, literally just needs some renovation so that we have a front door. We can co-locate all those services to better improve retention. So method of financing, how are we going to finance this? The estimated approximate cost of the project is $4.6 million. We're seeking approval from the board for issuing some revenue bonds to cover the full cost of phase one for a period of 15 years. A bond repayment will be supported through tuition and student housing revenues. So the current projected debt service, PFM group, which they're here, Ricardo's here, the back of the room, helped us evaluate our capacity to borrow additional bonds through the ABT parameters, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. The minimum required phase revenues to get ABT, $3.24 million is 1.5 times the maximum annual debt service. I'm sure you can see all of that. Ultimately, where this is going to leave the college, our contingency will only drop to 2.91, so we're still going to be in a strong financial situation. Actually, at some point, we could look at the capacity for additional bonds. We do reserve the right, right now we feel very strong. We've had 3 consecutive semesters of improved enrollment, growing enrollment. So our revenue from tuition and student housing is strong. Drew reserves the right at some point, if that were to change, then we would have to look at our special building fee, which is currently $10, but we're asking no request to change that this time. We wanted our revenues. Some brief history and future timeline of the project. Actually, the college has been thinking about this and wanting to do this for many years. Going back to 2010, the architect firm PH&J were contracted to work on looking at this. Where we're at today, it's still a schematic, it's a preliminary design. Clearly without the approval of the board, we cannot move forward. So what we will have to happen, they've not engaged with their engineers to submit the one-stop preliminary schemes, the building commission, all those things that are familiar with the project cannot happen until, of course, the board will approve. If the board of trustees approve the project, of course, we would re-engage the college, confirm the needs, the scope, and the project program based on a recalculated budget. As we progress through the subsequent preliminary phase and construction documents phase, we would have to choose an architect, select a project architectural firm, and make calculated budget assumptions as to the scope of the work that would need to be performed. Only then, of course, can we move forward. We have already taken a very thoughtful approach to prioritize bid and alternates. So you'll see 2 up there that are on the screen. One is for additional renovations to building 200 and 1200 at Summerton. And those are areas where we are moving folks to relocate in this new section. So we anticipate one of them is the library. So when we move folks out of the library and move the library to that one central location, we may find that there are things that are going to have to be done there and anticipate that there will be. The other piece is at the Jasper location. We will need some pedestrian and vehicular improvements to improve parking around that building. It is as it was in the 30s when it was originally constructed, and there are a lot of things that we need to do to make that more accessible, friendly to our students. At this point, I'd like Mr. Green Jones is going to come forward. Green's going to go over the specifics of the construction.
Just a little overview of the Summerton campus. If you've ever been to the Bethel Summerton campus, it's on US Highway 78. It's a very linear campus with this building 1200 out front, which is currently it has the library in that building. And so what we're thinking about doing is moving that function back into building 200. From US Highway 78, this is the view from the corner. It has a great flagpole and a small sign, but literally has no image from the highway. That should be the front door. That should be where everybody would know where to go. But for students, they really don't have that wayfinding to find their way through campus and where to start first. Even the side of the building, there's just some small signage on the side of the building. So what we're proposing is a new front, just kind of an elaborated entryway with some signage, just to give a little presence to that building so that the students would know where to go. And these are the two different floor plans of those two buildings where the work will be accomplished. We've done a preliminary layout of where the one stop would be in that front building. It has all those functions of a one stop with records and admissions and financial aid coming through the new entryway. And then that building 200 in the back is where the newly relocated library. We did start this study back under an open end back in 2010, and we did do some estimating at that time. We've come up with a budgetary cost, including development fees, that's aid fees, and building commission fees, and testing at $2.13 million. At Jasper is really the home base for the college, for Bethel. A little aerial view of the campus. Davis Hall is an unused building right there at the front entrance to the campus. Those are the two entry gates that go into the campus. Just to the right there, behind the trees, is this Davis Hall. Another side shot of Davis Hall, which is right located by the new Wade Hall, which is their science, math, and college administration building. That's the building to the left. The Davis Hall was really kind of a residential type structure. It's been used over a number of years by the college, but it has come in disrepair. This was an original drawing just so that you can see kind of a little clarity of what the building kind of looks like as far as a residential style building. And at first blush, as you drive up the driveway, you think, well, it doesn't look too bad. But on further examination, you will see we've taken our structural engineers, we've toured the building. It's hard enough just to keep the birds out of the building. I mean, the building is actually failing. After 70 years, it's just not working. So we have been tasked by the college to come up with a solution. And while this is just a schematic, the general solution is just to either renovate or rebuild, replace the Davis Hall building. So we went through the two scenarios. One was to renovate and one was to replace. And those numbers are at the bottom. It became very, very evident very quickly that the renovation cost at $4 million, which means you're taking it all apart, putting it all back together, versus just doing a $67,000 demo and rebuilding it. The 2.28 was the proper path. So what we're doing is we're proposing with Dr. Ferguson that we help him put together a project that includes the fees and testing, and that we would replace Davis Hall at that $2.283 million. contingency projection at 5%, roughly $200,000 contingency, to bring the total project cost of both campuses to $4,633,856. Anyway, I think we have stepped through this through the subcommittee.
Thank you, Rick. I really don't have anything additional to add for that. I'll be more than open to
Great.
answer any questions that you have.
Just a side question. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis. Any other questions, comments from trustees? Dr. Curtis. Item 5, a budget request.
On November 1, we were required to submit the budget request to the executive budget office for the system office and all the institutions. Along with that submission, we sent a letter letting them know that there could be changes because that request is subject to your approval. If you look at the second page of the action item, you'll see the meat of that budget request. The only increase that has been requested, the transfer requested, was $4.7 million for dual enrollment. That program has been very successful, and I understand that we're not really enough funds this year to fund all the requests from the colleges. Again, this year we requested $250,000 for the Knight versus Alabama transfer scholarship. 17-18, this budget is the last year that we have to request that. The funds that program. As in years past, we wrote the earmarks up into the college OEM, requesting the legislature not approve those separately, but just college OEM as a whole. Are there any questions?
Let me say this. As you're aware, this budget goes to the executive budget office, from which the governor prepares his budget request to the legislature. From there, the legislature develops their budget. We will be having a session with the speaker and the leadership, and the speaker the leadership of the session that you met with the Ways and Means Committee. And he's graciously will be involved in that meeting and said he'd be happy to sit down and meet with us. We're doing the same thing with the Senate. And one of the reasons we didn't ask for some of the things that we want is because the workforce just being on board with Jim, we're shooting for some kind of explanation about what we think we need to have to begin moving the workforce program in this state forward. So we will be making more requests for more money for the schools. But I just want to make sure you understood. We're simply satisfying the need on the executive budget office and the governor's office. The budget that the Ways and Means House puts together is more likely the budget that the Senate implements. So we will be prepared to make presentations to those people, and they are anticipating our.
Are there any questions?
Just one, the regional council seed funding, we deleted that, for the 2016-2017. It's at the bottom of the industry certification initiatives.
Right.
I was just curious,
That,
what's the basis?
and
That goes to Congress.
But it goes on first. Okay, so it's,
It will be in the Congress.
okay.
comment? Comment? Budget, is that what you said? Okay.
We actually funded that out of our budget.
Item 6, purchase of property for Wallace State Community College, Hansville.
I think y'all got me for the next three.
Okay?
The first one is the property purchase at Wallace State, Hansville. This request is very similar to a request that the board approved earlier this year for the purchase of another piece of property at the south entrance of the college. This proposed purchase involves 3.37 acres of land and a 39-year-old structure. It's my understanding that the college has now submitted 2 appraisals, a phase 1 environmental study and a hazardous materials study to the facilities committee for review, and that the committee has reviewed that documentation and is apparently, as I understand it, prepared to recommend the approval of this purchase, subject only to the college's agreement that there will be no remodeling of the structure.
That's correct.
Does anyone have any other questions with regard to this item? Dr. Karlowicz, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, sir. Mr. Vice President, members of the board, it is our intent, as we presented to you earlier, to improve the campus gateway to the college, and that house, along with the others, would ultimately be removed in our long-term plan.
Any other questions or comments?
Dr. Karlowicz, the long-term plan you submitted to us, along with that prior request, was very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
It made us all familiar with everything, so we knew exactly what we were looking at here.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Anything else on this? We're going to proceed, David.
The next item is a request for approval of the renewal of a bookstore operation and services agreement at Wallace-Selma. Wallace-Selma has had Barnes & Nobles on campus running their bookstore. Again, this is a request for approval of a renewal of that contract, a 5-year contract. The college will receive a commission of 8% on all gross sales under $900,000 and a commission of 12% on all gross sales over $900,000. In addition, the college will receive an annual $5,000 textbook scholarship and a one-time donation of 4 laptop computers. We have reviewed the agreement. Barnes & Nobles has made the revisions we've requested, and we will be prepared to recommend to the board that we approve this agreement and its next.
I think it was raised on the conference call that I was on. Susan, I don't know if you raised the question, I can't remember who it was, about just reviewing in general these contracts with individual institutions and what's in our best interest on these, and that if we have one firm doing it at 2 or 3 schools, and then another firm doing the bookstores at other schools. Crystal brought it up. Okay. Crystal, okay, good. That was a good idea, Crystal. And yeah. Go ahead.
I have, Ms. Brown, I gathered the information that you inquired about, and I was hoping you were going to be here today so I could put it in your hand. But I do have a list from all the schools that indicate whether or not they have outsourced their bookstore, and if so, with whom, or whether they are conducting their own in-house bookstore. And I will email that to you today.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. And I'll give these to the other
This might be one of those areas, it may be one of the areas that Campus Works, I'll print it on again. I think that would be prudent.
This commission compared to the 2011 initial bill, is the same 8%, 12%?
Yes.
I think they were trying to negotiate more on this.
Well, this is what was presented.
Okay, all right.
And the revisions that were made were, one revision was the middle revision, which had revised to include the board of trustees. And then a couple of other minor issues that were addressed.
Any other questions about the bookstore operation agreement?
The next item is the cyber insurance item, and this, as promised this morning, is an executive summary of the coverage that is being proposed through this policy. I would first note that we have been working on this for a while. It took a great deal of cooperation from the colleges in that the insurance companies requested a great deal of information with respect to the individual colleges' IT systems. But after a lot of hard work, we actually got this quote yesterday, which was the reason it was late getting into the items for the work session. But I think I have tried to summarize in as layman terms as I possibly could the various coverages that would be provided under this policy. Not only for third-party claims, but for first-party coverage as well, with regard to costs and expenses in responding to any sort of data breach. To include conducting investigations as to the cause, hiring experts, public relations firms to engage in crisis management, and even engaging entities to conduct credit monitoring for the individuals whose identities may have been compromised. Instead of trying to go through this today, I thought it might be best to allow you to read it at your leisure. But the policy limits would be $1 million per occurrence, a $10 million annual aggregate limit with a $10,000 self-retention per occurrence. The premium amount will be $96,134, which I believe the Chancellor is proposing to be distributed amongst the colleges based on revenue.
Is this premium competitive? Did we get some other proposals or?
That is the best proposal that we got. We did get others.
We've done our due diligence on this insurance
it okay if we just move on and then come up with any questions on this to address those to David later?
That would be great. Any other questions or comments regarding this item?
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, at long last, you have 200 series policies. It's taken quite some time to get them finished. Prior to last month's meeting, we had circulated some drafts to the presidents and got some comments back. Following last month's work session, I got some additional comments from some board members. And I think now what you have before you is the final latest and greatest of the 200 series policies. Last Friday, the policy committee, Van Troy, Ms. Brown, and Ms. Boyd met with us, and by phone, we went through each one of these individually. The majority of them are simply updates and changes to get wording and verbiage right to bring those policies within the framework of this Board of Trustees as opposed to the former State Board of Education. So a lot of that is just editing to clean them up, to get them into those terms and the terminology consistent with the new act. You will note that in your policies, which I think, Ms. Van Troy, you're going to recommend for voting on those at the December meeting, I believe. That's correct. That there are a few that have been changed or moved around, and I just wanted to highlight those for you. The first one is the actual calendar of instruction. The 700 series committee, which you heard from in the initiatives that were discussed at this morning's board meeting, that particular policy, 201.02, is moved out of the 200 series and will be dealt with in the 700 series of policies. So you'll see that it is all essentially blue line out. You'll also not need to vote to approve again 203.01, which is the presidential recruitment and selection process. You have already addressed that, and that policy, as you know, was submitted to SACS as a part of the site review process that we went through, and SACS will have that on their calendar in December. Ron, do you want me to address the concerns you raised on that policy? There has been a question raised, and Ms. Van Troy discussed this with us all in our committee meeting last week, that the college appointees to that presidential selection, which is 5D, subparagraph D, that there's some desire to have those particular members of the advisory committee, of the search committee, elected or appointed at the college level as opposed to being selected by the chancellor as this policy is now drafted. The determination was made to leave it alone for now. It was an item to essentially be placed on or to be considered later. But Chancellor, for your purposes, a desire for that to be considered on your part in the event of a presidential search, which we've discussed, and Dr. Baker's indicated he certainly is agreed to move forward with that. So that discussion was a lengthy one, but one which was very helpful to all of us to understand within that process. So
It's a valid suggestion.
yes.
And I think warrants consideration.
that may deserve some comment for you is 204.01.
Before you
Oh,
move
I'm sorry.
on, the same consideration, we discussed also should be given to items E and F.
That's on the selection policy.
Yes. You reviewed 5D,
Yes.
but the same, premise applies to items E and F as well. We discussed that during the
Yes.
subdivision.
Yes. So essentially, the idea would be to look at that perhaps after the first of the year, once we get through and pass our section. I'm sorry, I was with that. Ron, is there anything else? 204.01, you will see that there was a change made there concerning the chancellor approving president's appointments of deans or vice presidents, essentially trying to keep, as you had requested, eyes on, hands on, high-level, upper management positions at the colleges and keeping those in some semblance of order. And this would require, obviously, the submission of the current organizational chart and come to the chancellor with regard to those high-level officers at the college. These don't really need any comment for you other than we talked in some of our work sessions about some of the policies that flowed from the 2005-2006 timeframe where the system met with overall investigative issues. So this is an area here in the 2005, 205.01, and the three policies following that deal with nepotism, the employment of relatives, and those issues which were hot topics then and remain so, and are codified in Alabama law at this point. So that series of items have been brought forward in these policies for you to maintain those positions relative to the hiring or employment or oversight of employees or contractors that have relatives affiliated with some member of the college or the system office. So those are brought forward, which require obviously ultimate disclosure and very broad and direct scrutiny over the supervision and evaluation of relatives of supervisors employed within the system. So we just wanted to make sure that you all knew that those policies were in fact being brought forward from the prior 200 series policies. There was a change to 11.01 that deals with essentially the closing of colleges on inclement weather days. Under prior policy, there had been obligations by presidents to submit a plan for making up the lost instructional days occasioned by inclement weather or other college closing. And from what we learned from the 200 series subcommittee in this process, that apparently either was one of two things, a cumbersome process or one for which lip service had been given. So depending on who you talk to, it could be either way. But essentially it was a very difficult and hard to define process for uniformity because the colleges seem to have had different ways in which the hours and scheduling of classes and work and class time and lab time and those things were being done. So the idea here is that they know what their SACS requirements are, they know that their instructional days that have to be met, and the expectation here is that the colleges will manage that issue in accordance with their required SACS accreditation processes. So we have eliminated at the committee's request the idea of the submission and approval of an inclement weather plan following such an event. Now this one there's no real change to, but I believe your policy committee desired to emphasize this and perhaps also emphasize it that is the college-related foundations policy, which is 213.01. I don't have to tell anybody that's ever heard of the two-year college system how important our proper management of dealing with foundation funds and our relationship between local leadership and those, generally those funds become. We know that that has been something that we had a history with that went bad. And when this policy was put in place, I believe the first rendition of this policy was about 2006 or 7, in the aftermath of some of our issues. I was involved in this, and a part of this policy you will see is a very comprehensive contract or document that governs the foundation's relationship with the institutions. In other words, it's a model agreement. And what we asked out of this policy was that the colleges have this model agreement in place where they have a foundation that's in place. Some of our colleges do not have currently active foundations, and hopefully this will encourage that. But as the committee talked about this on Friday, this is very, very important. It is very important from both a public perception standpoint, an ethics standpoint, and from a compliance standpoint, that we have these particular relationships defined by contract and that those things are observable. Believe it or not, we have had an occasion or two where a conflict has arisen between a college and a foundation. And when that occurs, in the absence of this type of structure, it becomes very testy as to who's got what authority and what right to look at which accounting record, or ask questions of someone, or hold someone accountable. And is that a foundation employee or a college employee, and who do they answer to? Those things can get pretty hairy if you get into a dispute. And when you're talking about money, just wait, it'll happen. So we wanted to bring that attention to that particular policy. The next policy that had some material change to it is 215.01, which is the systems lobbying activities policy. As you all know, that policy has been around for a good long while as well. But due to some of the changes in the ethics laws, and including the registration requirements now, this policy could have been interpreted to read that you had to be an actual W-2 wage earner to carry out a lobbying activity. So getting and making it personal, that would mean I couldn't help you in negotiating legislation at the State House as an outside professional consultant or lawyer for you, because I am now required to register as a lobbyist. Even though I don't lobby, I work on writing and drafting bills, I'm considered to be such. And so anyone who functions in that capacity now must be registered, because you are there negotiating, working with, molding, and drafting legislation. So this will allow for a contracted person who has to be called a lobbyist to actually perform services for you. Now, it is critical to understand that this policy does bring forward the mission statement from your previous policy, Mr. Thompson, that y'all had as the state board, that all lobbying activities are to be coordinated through the Chancellor's office. So this is not a free rein for anybody and everybody to go out and quote, employ a lobbyist that they're choosing. This is still a very highly managed and supervised process under the direction of the Chancellor. I think that makes common sense, that you don't need multiple people hiring multiple lobbyists that may or may not be championing the cause of your particular policy or some legislative agenda that you have. And the policy brings forward the position you've always had, that all legislative activity needs to be conducted in conformity, not only with your set agenda from this board, but in strict conformity with the Alabama ethics law as well. And I believe that's all the ones y'all had asked me to comment on. It's a lot. It'll give you some nice bedtime reading.
This
22001.
Oh, that's a,
Appointment stage.
yeah, that's just a, I forgot to mention that, I should have mentioned that in the first group. This is another one that we brought forward that has to do with our employing elected officials. Everybody that's been here a while remembers, we adopted this out of our past history. So we brought that policy forward as well, and that is obviously consistent with, some issues we have with Alabama law concerning this. But you will find that we brought that policy forward as to how, we are to deal with elected officials, and the employment of certain elected officials are absolutely prohibited within our system. So we made no substantive change to that policy, but we did continue it, which really, back in the day, we referred to as the double dipping policy. That's what some folks would refer to it. So we did bring that forward so that that will once again be the policy of this board. I'm sorry, left that one out. Did I get them? Thank you, Coach. I will answer any questions that you have about any of those. No. That was just a polite thing for me to say.
Ron, anything else you'd like to add?
No more than that, just like to thank the subcommittee for their efforts to work on this. Quite an involved process.
Thanks for the work that's been done. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Roger. Any questions from the trustees? Chancellor Baker, do you have anything else to come before us this work session? Okay. Press conference. Go ahead.
As you know, we have a press conference at 2 o'clock in the boardroom with several of the colleges being represented about the reverse transfer and signing of MOUs. It's possible that all of you know through that press conference. It shouldn't take very long, it's pretty quick. But it's a cooperative effort. A lot of the 40 colleges are going to be represented. I'd like to invite you to that press conference.
And that's down in the boardroom set up for that press conference. My thanks to everyone for their attendance and interest in what we're doing, and we invite you to attend that press conference. We're going straight to it from here, immediately following. We'll stand adjourned.
Thank you.